Welcome back to Sailing El Jaleo. You may or may not have noticed, but last week I actually released 2 videos, and I'm going to try and do 2 shorter videos every week just to see how it works out. Might be better than 1 longer video. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. If you did make it to the end of the last video, you know while attempting to leave Mill Creek, we did run aground, and shortly thereafter our alternator caught on fire. Since then, we've been waiting out some bad weather in the bay, and I had a grease fire in our Traeger, and things just keep getting better. We're going to try and escape tomorrow morning again, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can actually get out of here. Alrighty, grab a drink, climb aboard, and let's get going. You may have noticed in previous videos that I do have a short hose at the very front of the boat, and that is run by a pressure pump that pulls ambient water from around us, and I use that to spray down the chain as I'm hauling it up. Dogs like to eat mud off the chain, which probably is not the best for them, so I try and get it as clean as possible before I get the chain up on the deck. When we arrived in Mill Creek, the fitting that held the end of the spray nozzle on that hose had corroded and broke off, so it took me a little longer than normal this time to pull the chain up. I just got to figure out a new routine until I can get that repaired. After spending 4 or 5 days in Mill Creek, our spirits were high as the wind had finally broken and we were able to make our way down the bay towards Norfolk. While leaving Mill Creek, 2 motor yachts that had also spent the evening in Mill Creek were rapidly closing up behind us. The channel to get out of Mill Creek is narrow, and I tried to move over to the side to let them go by as they were riding my ass, and unfortunately I ran aground. That's why I do a little pirouette here in the video, and that's me backing off of, it was a very soft grounding, soft mud. I've got a very thick, long keel. It's not, no damage would be done there, but it was just frustrating. So we backed off of that and we continued on our way. And it was shortly thereafter when I thought I smelled some smoke, and I wasn't sure. I stuck my head down inside and I could smell something, and I'm like, that doesn't smell normal, but I couldn't put a finger on it. And I came down, opened up the engine compartment. You know, I had shifted into neutral and was just kind of bobbing around, and I couldn't see anything coming from the engine bay. So I left the engine bay open and I went back up, started going again, and then about 30 seconds later, the smoke alarm down in the cabin, the main, inside the boat, went off, and I quick shut her down. We were in an area where we were safe, where we could bob around for a while, so I shut everything down. I came downstairs, opened up the engine compartment, and there was smoke. It was already open, but there was just smoke rolling out of the engine compartment, filling the boat with not a very pleasant odor. At that point, I had killed the engine, so I wasn't sure exactly where the smoke was coming from, but I checked all of my fluid levels, my oil, transmission fluid, coolant, all of that, and everything was fine, so I felt pretty good about the engine. So I tentatively started it back up and went down below and just kept an eye on it, and I could see the alternator start to smoke after a while. So I pulled the fuses for the alternator, which killed it, and the smoke eventually dissipated. And all of my gauges were good on the engine, fluid levels were good, so I decided, rather than taking a chance of going forward and getting stuck in the bay with high winds coming in that night, I decided to limp back to Mill Creek and do a better assessment of what exactly had gone wrong, rather than getting caught with my shorts down. When we were safely anchored, I did a good once-over on the engine. Everything was fine. All the gauges were good. All of our levels were fine. I checked all of the fluids again. Everything was good. So I was fairly confident that it was the alternator was the issue. I was a little paranoid just because I didn't want to get out in the bay with bad weather coming and get caught. So I'm glad I went back to Mill Creek. It turns out it is the alternator. The next day, I got up and checked all of the fluids again. I ran the engine for 5 or 10 minutes. I tried to adjust the output on the alternator, and I just couldn't get any response out of it. So the alternator is truly fried, and that's okay, because that alternator and that alternator regulator were never designed to work with a lithium iron phosphate system. And all of my components are Victron with the exception of the batteries. And Victron does make alternator regulators that are made for charging lithium iron phosphate batteries. And I had to do a little bit of dancing. I know I showed adjusting it in the past and I thought that fixed it, but then on the next trip I figured out that it didn't. I was actually putting too much voltage into the lithium batteries, so that's not good. So I killed that right away, but the setup as it wasn't right for my system. So it's okay that this melted down. I'm fine. I got the solar. That's enough power to get me until I can do research to get the correct alternator and the correct alternator regulator to work with my new lithium iron phosphate system. Due to the alternator issue, we didn't make it down the bay to our next stop, so we had to stay in Mill Creek for a couple more days as a storm came through on its way to Florida.
Security. All stations. This is U.S. Coast Guard, Sector Virginia. U.S. Coast Guard, Sector Virginia. U.S. Coast Guard, Sector Virginia. Break. Urgent marine weather message. National Weather Service, Wakefield, Virginia, 9:59 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. Chesapeake Bay from Newpoint Comfort to Little Creek, Virginia. Chesapeake Bay from Little Creek, Virginia to Camp Henry, Virginia, including the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. Gale warning now in effect until 1 a.m. Wednesday. Northeast winds 20 to 30 knots with gusts to around 35 knots and waves 4 to 6 feet expected.
While we were waiting for the high winds to come in, we decided to go ahead and grill some hamburgers. We hadn't used the grill for a while and hamburgers sounded good. The grill doesn't sit exactly level on the back of the boat. It is tipped just slightly forward, and I had never cooked anything with that much fat in it before, and we found out that the fat doesn't drain even at a very slight angle, so we started a grease fire. This week I should have just stayed in bed. It was no big deal. The fire was contained within the grill itself, and I had a fire extinguisher right underneath the dog mat that was across from me, so I could have put it out easily if I had to, but I knew it would burn itself out, so I just let it burn itself out. After several days of delays, wind, and fire, we finally got underway again. Today we were heading towards Antipoision Creek in Virginia. Fortunately, this trip went a lot better than our previous attempt. I guess any day when you don't have a fire is better than one when you do. But anyway, the bay had great conditions. It was mid-60s, 10 to 15 knot winds, probably a little less than that, probably closer to 10 with maybe gusts up to 15, but it was nice. We got the head sail out at a few different points along the way, and for about 2 hours I was able to put the head sail out and turn off the engine and just sail. And it was amazing. I absolutely love it. I don't know why, but for me personally, as soon as I turn that engine off, all of my stress just disappears. Everything slows down, you know, you're just bopping around. We were only doing like 2.5 knots. It took us a couple hours longer to get where we needed to go, but this trip was only 17.5 nautical miles, which is a really short day. So we had the time to burn. And I just love it when that engine's not running and you're just sailing. You can hear the water, you can hear the wind. It's just so much more peaceful. Like, it totally de-stressed me. It was great. It was a great day. We reached Antipoision Creek around noon that day, and we wanted to go as far back up the creek as we could. We're expecting 40 knot winds starting at around midnight tonight, between 35 and 40 knots. So we wanted to get as far back as we could to get as much protection as we could. When we reached our anchorage, I tried to set the anchor in the direction that the high wind was going to be coming in tonight, not the direction that the wind was currently blowing. And I had some success, but this anchor so far has proven to be bulletproof. It is an 88-pound Rockna, and it's way oversized for our boat, so I can sleep pretty easy at night knowing that it's going to take quite a bit to move us. After we anchored, I spent a few moments cleaning up the dog mat on the deck and just straightening up the deck in general. I did have an anchor beer, and then the wind had died down just a little bit, so I decided to go ahead and fly the drone to take a look around. According to legend, Antipoision Creek got its name from Captain John Smith, who was stung on the wrist by a stingray at Stingray Point and brought to the creek by natives who washed his wound and saved his life. It has been pointed out that Smith wrote about the incident at Stingray Point in A True Relation of Virginia, but he did not write about going to Antipoision Creek or any other body of water to find a cure. A less compelling explanation for the name Antipoision is that it was originally an Indian word that changed over the years. As we motored into Antipoision Creek, I thought we passed a fishmonger along the way, so I flew the drone back to take a look. I thought, hey, why not pick up some fresh fish while we're here? But unfortunately, it is the Pride of Virginia bait and oyster, and I'm not much of an oyster person, so I think we'll pass this time. And that's the end of our misadventures this week. I would like to give a massive shout out to our Patreon crew, Joan and Juddy Judnick, Val and Chris Alcorn, Denise and Eli Sackett, Joan and Jim Linbo, Sherry Erickson, and Deb Shaw. Thank you guys so much for your support. It really means the world to me. Without you guys, I probably wouldn't make these videos, so thank you very much. If you are interested in joining our Patreon crew, there is a link in the description down below. That'll give you access to our Patreon page where we've got bonus videos, tons of photos, extra content. You can stay up to date with where we're at live, and you'd help support the channel, which would be awesome. If you do like our videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. That helps us out as well. Alrighty, I'll see you all next week.